President just played their inaugural rally, as they call it, in Islington in London at the Garage, and I've just now come home from that gig. Sweaty, tired, it is about midnight right now, but I thought I'll capture my thoughts now while they're fresh in my mind about what that experience was really like, what really happened during that performance, and just how sweaty was it, because it was really, really sweaty. I swear, London venues need air conditioning. Why is this not happening? It is insane. Anyway, as their first proper gig, they played Download Festival a few weeks ago. I did get to check out their first song there, but this was going to be a little bit different. This would be a bit special. It's their own stage, indoors, in a controlled environment. What would be different about this? What would they do in terms of lighting? How would they structure their set list? What's the plan for their first proper concert? I was so intrigued to find out. Now, for context, my feelings on this band are I am positively leaning intrigued. There are moments of genius, I think, in some of the songwriting, but also moments where I think it's a little bit uninteresting, or the vocal effects in the verses I struggle with a little bit. Because I know this person, the singer, has an incredible voice. And when that's allowed to shine, I think those are the better moments. But that's just my opinion going in. I like the fact that it's interesting. It's a little bit different in terms of the packaging of it. I think more bands should do things like that. Sure, they're absolutely following the footsteps of Sleep Token, but that's fine. Someone's got to. There's a good blueprint there, and I think they're following it pretty well, and they're creating something interesting, and there's a buzz to it. So I was looking forward to seeing this gig and getting a sense of what the atmosphere was for this brand new band with a bunch of hype around it, and some good songs to start with. Now, I arrived at the venue at around 8 o'clock. I thought that's when the first band would be on, but they didn't start until about 8. And it was already pretty packed out. Like, this was clearly, obviously, a sold-out gig. But it was rammed from early doors, because I think people didn't know what time the bands were going to come on. So they got there quite early. And the queue for the merch was Sleep Token-like. It was near constant and long and slow-moving. So clearly people were very, very excited about this. And they did more than just play the gig. They added a little bit of an atmosphere to it in a couple of different ways. They had bunting that they hung from the ceiling that was using President logo, bits and pieces. That was not normal for a gig. So they created a little bit of a fanfare, right? It's a rally, so maybe they'll do that at all gigs. I don't know. We'll find out as time goes on. They also had a presidential candidate-like figure with a couple of bodyguards flicking around the crowd, moving through and passing out badges. I got one of them. They handed it to me here with the logo on it. That's kind of a fun additional, 4D experience in its own way, part of the thing. And the security guys were super intimidating with masks on. It was a little bit unnerving, as is the band generally, right? The kind of mask thing going on is a little bit unnerving. So that was happening to create a little bit more of the atmosphere. They're also passing out things like flags. President flag there. There's another one that had just the logo on it. There were some like small poster cards saying, inaugural rally. So they were making it a bit of an event, which is fun. And the merch had items for sale that were specifically, this was the inaugural rally gig in London. So they're smart to recognize the importance and value of this for the fervor of fans that were excited to be there. There was also a pretty cool looking poster, actually, which I grabbed because one of my Discord members asked for this. But that's pretty cool. It's kind of badass. Good quality stuff. £50. It's a lot for a piece of paper, but there we are. That was pretty cool. It was an occasion. It certainly felt like that. And I was intrigued to see what the support band would be like. Zetra are a band I have some familiarity with. I'm sure I've heard one or two of the songs before. And it's not quite my thing, so I probably won't have a lot to say about it, but it's two individuals on stage, one on keyboards, another one on guitar. Both doing some vocals. One's more of a lead vocalist. They also had a surprise guest vocalist, someone from the band called Svalbard. Apparently, someone told me that. I wasn't sure. Doing some scream vocals during one of their songs. And they're doing what they do quite well. I think it is decent enough stuff for what it is. What it is not quite my vibe, but... And especially when it comes to live performances, I don't think there's much intrigue there. They're pretty static on stage just playing their music, and there's no live drums, so there's a backing track for the drums, and half of the live input is keyboards, which is this kind of same sound no matter how you hit it, pretty much when it comes to the PA. So it didn't translate a lot of kind of human input other than the vocals there. They had a big visualizer, sort of a screen in between them, which added a little bit of staging interest there. But I think they could have done more with it. It was sort of like a looping video of some faces glitching out and things. They were fine. I heard one person saying that they thought they were uninteresting and another person saying they were phenomenal. So it's very much, I think, depending on your taste. It's a tough slot to open up for President on their first gig when clearly there's a bunch of very avid President fans there. To pick the right support band to get the right tone there for President's set later on, I think it was all right. I don't know that it was really the right fit for that gig, but it was okay. Not my bag. They did fine. And then President came on stage just after 9:30, and they've only released 3 songs. There is what seems like an EP coming, which has maybe 5 or 6 songs on it. I'm not sure. I haven't looked at the track listing. But for a headline set to only have 5 or 6 songs available to them was quite an interesting prospect. And they handled that in an interesting way. They opened with Fearless, which is the same song they opened with at Download Festival, and it fucking slaps live. I think it's a very good song. The Fearless chat doesn't really do it for me, and the vocal effects and the verses don't really do it for me. But live, I noticed those vocal effects a little bit less at Download Festival. I noticed them a bit more at the Garage. So that is a component of their live sound as well as their recordings, which is kind of just not for me as much. In the choruses, I notice it a lot less. I don't think they have it as strong in the choruses, and you get to hear the lead singer's voice really shine for its full, powerful abilities. And that's the stuff that really gets me going. It's the human, raw, powerful input live. That's why I go to a live show. I don't really go to live shows to see someone on stage making sounds that are converted into notes by tuning or vocal effects for most of the set, because it just doesn't feel live to me. But that's a me thing. So most people there seem to absolutely love that. I mean, there are fans there who have President tattoos on them already. They've released 3 songs. And people are getting them tattooed in like prime real estate, like the back of the neck. The President logo tattooed on there. So they're clearly doing something right to connect in that way with people already. So that's very impressive. And this is where music gets interesting, I think, and packaging whatever it is and the kind of band's ideals, is that it's not going to be for everyone. And that's fine. It doesn't matter if I'm not completely head over heels with this particular band. What they're doing, I think, is of generally high quality. They're just moments that I don't particularly connect with, like the live auto-tune vocals. I struggle with those bits in particular. But the moments where those were not prominent, I thought were excellent. They're clearly very experienced, them and the band, at performing live. It was a very polished show and very well put together. It was cool to hear some of the unreleased songs yet live, because I only saw the first song live at Download Festival, which I'd already heard of Fearless. And there were moments in there that were fucking cool. There was one song that had a particularly heavy breakdown that I'm excited to hear on the actual record when that comes out. And other moments I thought were pretty decent. Some bits and pieces I thought were kind of a little bit on the average side, but that's okay. You can't have everything just be full of heaters necessarily. I don't know. There are things I love. There are things I think are on the way to greatness at some point. The other thing that struck me as I was watching the performance is they're getting a lot of comparisons to Sleep Token because of how they're presenting themselves, right? Masked band, anonymous, the teasing of bits and pieces on socials, but also even in the staging. At the back of the stage, they have their big logo behind them, the same way that Sleep Token would do pre-Download Festival, when they just have the big logo there, the lights and it changes colors and things. They have that going, and it's very similar in so many ways to what Sleep Token do. But I'm not mad about that, and they don't sound like Sleep Token. They sound quite different. And their live performance is different still. Their kind of vibe and attitude is different. They have very much that president theme going on throughout their performance as well. He comes on stage to a sort of jaunty, old school presidential sort of fanfare tune. And when he's saluting to the crowd, he's doing like a 2 fingers up sort of presidential thing, or like is it Nixon that does that? So there's bits and pieces they've done in order to fit in with the concept and make it feel like a fully thought out performance, which I thought was good. You know, I'd like more bands to do things like that, not just show up on stage, play the songs, and leave. It sort of depends on the band, the people in it, and the vibe that they're going for. But I enjoyed this for the spectacle that it was. I think they executed their live performance pretty well. And the peak moment for me, though, was the surprise cover. Given they don't have that many songs, they're doing a headline set, they gotta have something more than those to have more than like a 20-minute set. And they played Change in the House of Flies, I think is the full name, by Deftones, which was fucking awesome. That was incredibly impressive. They executed that song live perfectly. I was so impressed. I mean, it's a cracking song anyway, but props to the musicians as well. They crushed their parts of that, and the lead singer's voice was almost fantastic at echoing that song live. Really impressive. It didn't feel so much like a President version of Change. It felt very much like a replication of the exact song. So I saw some comments on Instagram, because I posted my clip of their cover of Change, saying, I really hope they put this on the debut album or record whenever that comes out. I don't think they will, because I think it just seemed very much like a like-for-like copy of Change, which is what made it so impressive for me, because that's very hard to do. But it wasn't really a reimagining, but I fucking loved it. I thought it was absolutely incredible, and it was cool to see a little bit of the peek behind the curtain as to the inspiration of that band and their roots in the metal scene, beyond just like, oh, Sleep Token's successful, I'll do that too. Clearly they've been into this stuff for a very long time. So that was cool, and it was an excellent cover. I was very impressed. And then they finished off the whole set with In the Name of the Father, which was an excellent closer. It was high energy, punchy. People were shouting all the words too, not only those songs that have been released already as singles, but the ones that they played at Download Festival. People know the words to them already. The fever level of fandom for this band already is very impressive. And there were moments where I felt a little bit on the outside of some in-joke that I didn't get, because I was like, this is good. I think President are above average. I don't think they're exceptional. I think the way they're packaging themselves is super intriguing and very effective. I think they're going to become great in future. I think the more they write music in this new realm that they've created, the more unique they can become, I think. And I'm excited to see where they go. And also to hear the songs that I heard live that weren't released yet in their studio versions, to see what differences there might be there. But I was very impressed with the inaugural rally by President. It was a cool thing to be able to go and experience live. They did an excellent job. It was a very professional show they put on, and the crowd thoroughly enjoyed it. I really was quite impressed. Some of those moments in particular. Yeah, it was not a pedestrian sort of show. It was very good. It's very good. I liked it. Well, let's see where they go from here. I mean, they got a tour coming up. They'll be supporting architects on tour across arenas, which is going to be no joke, but they're very experienced from their previous bands that they've been into. I'm sure they'll be absolutely fine. And they're crushing, entering the scene as a new band, making some waves, and doing a pretty good job overall, actually. And given how hot and sweaty it was in that venue, I'm all the more impressed with the singer with that full face mask on. They must have been just pure liquid on the inside of that by the end of that set. So fair fucks to them. They might be regretting the choice of their getup in venues such as that. But anyway, fun experience. And those are my thoughts on that first gig there at the Garage in London by President. If you were there, let me know in the comments what you thought of that. What was your experience of that gig? And I'd love to hear everyone else's thoughts on those. And we'll see where they go from here. It's a phenomenal start. It's a good product overall. I'm very interested to see where it goes from here.